the Liberals have tabled a proposal which is going to change how the House of Commons operates. We know that they tried to do this before. I don't know if you remember, there was this thing called Motion 6 where they were trying to change how the rules of debate worked. And they also tried to do this with our electoral system. My colleague Mark Strahl, who is a very good friend of mine, and he's the Member of Parliament from Chilliwack.
Oh, yes.
Mark is going to tell you more about what the Liberals are trying to do and how disastrous this is going to be for Canadian democracy. Like, this is, you actually need to be really worried about what's about to happen.
Thanks, Michelle. I think it is something that Canadians do need to start to pay attention to, and that's the Liberals are treating the House of Commons like it's theirs, like the seats in the House of Commons belong to them or belong to the Prime Minister. And so they brought in changes, they put this proposal forward to eliminate our ability to talk about things at committee. You and Shannon Stubbs, for instance, did a great job holding the Liberal minister to account over his plans to close Vegreville. They want to take away the ability of the opposition to do that.
They want to limit, so part of this proposal, the first thing is they actually want to limit the ability for members to speak in committee. So in parliamentary committee, that's where bills are debated, that's where government spending is examined. And Mark, so just to be clear, they actually want to curtail the amount of time that members can take in committee to do that.
Absolutely,
right?
They want to put a fixed 10-minute limit to force members of Parliament to stick to that kind of a timeline. They want to take away our ability to debate at committee. They want to take away our ability to even call certain motions to debate committee reports in the House of Commons.
So just like, because a lot of you might not understand like the parliamentary procedure behind this, when a bill is tabled in the House of Commons, essentially the debate goes on it until
no member rises to speak,
exactly,
or the government cuts off the debate.
So you think about it, there's 338 members. Each region of the country has a member of Parliament so that their interests can be expressed in the debate in the House of Commons. And this change, if I understand it right, would mean that there's a set time limit and not everybody would be able to speak.
They would curtail the debate before the debate even starts. And the insulting part, and just down this hallway, in fact, they've said that
we need you to pay attention to.
They've said this is just a discussion. We want Canadians to talk about it. But just down the hall, they're already ramming this through the Procedure and House Affairs Committee.
Yes.
They have sat all through the morning. They sat all through question period. They're trying to force this discussion to go ahead before Canadians have an opportunity to learn about what's really in this motion.
I bet you didn't even know about this. Like, we're desperately trying to get attention on this. Just to reemphasize what Mark is saying, so the Procedure and House Affairs Committee is the committee that meets. It's got members of Parliament on how it looks at the rules of the House of Commons and other things. But as Mark's saying, right now, Conservative and NDP members are trying to ensure that this motion does not pass. This could fundamentally change Canadian democracy, and so we need you to be out there on your Facebook stream, sharing this video, going out and paying attention to what's happening in that room, and sending a message to the Liberals that regardless of your political stripe, this should not be happening. The other thing that Mark asked some really good questions in the House of Commons today on this issue. What did the government tell you when you stood up and said, why are you doing this? What was the response that you got?
They keep saying this is to make Parliament work better. It doesn't make it work better when they have less accountability.
I think it just makes it easier on the Liberals to push their crappy legislation through.
Well, it has another change that they don't want you to hear about is that the Prime Minister would only show up once a week for questions. We need Liberal members of Parliament to understand that this is about Parliament. This isn't about our party. This is about how this place will function when we're here just for a short time.
Yes.
Well, we are temporary occupants of those seats, and we need to leave Parliament in a better place than we found it. And when you reduce the ability of members of Parliament to question the government or to hold the government accountable, you weaken democracy, and that's a fundamental part of what is happening here. They want to make their lives easier as a government, but the Liberal members who aren't in the cabinet are not members of that government, and they need to stand up and defend Parliament, not defend what the PMO, what the Prime Minister wants them to do. They need to defend this institution that's a key part of the Canadian democratic
fabric. It's about
fabric.
their constituents, right? At the end of the day, we've seen Liberal members vote against government legislation. Liberal members should be concerned about this too, because it means they can't stand up and give their constituents feedback if this changes. The other thing that I want to leave you guys with is that one of the changes that they want to do right now, as Mark and I as members of parliament, we can put in what are called written questions. So we can submit a written question to the government on any piece of legislation, and the government is required to respond to us within 45 days.
Seems reasonable.
I mean, that's a long period of time when you think about it. What they want to do is they want to take that time limit, which would mean that I could ask a question on behalf of you, Mark could do the same, and they would never have to respond to it. What do you want to see Canadians do?
I think Canadians have to, first of all, make themselves aware that this is happening, and we're trying to do that right here. They need to talk to Liberal members of Parliament. If you're in a Liberal riding, talk to Liberal members of Parliament about the need to protect Canada's democratic institutions. This is what this is about. It isn't about Justin Trudeau or Rona Ambrose or you or I. Again, we are just here serving our constituents, but when you fundamentally change the rules of the House of Commons to benefit your own party and limit the ability of the opposition to do our jobs, we're not doing anything untoward, we're asking questions.
We have a vote right now in the House. This committee is going to sit again right afterwards.
Perhaps through the night. Yeah.
Perhaps through the night. I know I'm going to take part of that, and Mark's going to take part of it, and we're going to do our best to stand up for you on this, but we need your help too. So get on the phone right now. Tell your relatives about this. This is so crazy. So we need your help. We're going to get back in there and keep standing up for you, but we just wanted to give you a quick update on this absolutely crazy, sneaky plan of theirs to undermine our institutions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, we're seeing a troubling pattern established with these Liberals. They're shutting down debate, they're ramming through legislation, and we have a Prime Minister who doesn't want to answer questions directly on his ethical lapses. Now we find out he only actually wants to be here one day a week to answer questions. That is not accountability. So my question to the Prime Minister is, does he commit that no changes will be made to the standing orders unless he has agreement from all parties in this House?
Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected a government with an ambitious plan for change, for investing in the middle class, investing in the future of this country, and that's exactly what we are busy delivering. We're putting forward legislation that lowered taxes on the middle class, raised them on the wealthiest 1%, put forward a Canada Child benefit that gives more money to 9 out of 10 Canadian families. We have an awful lot that we need to get done for Canadians to grow the middle class after 10 years of neglect from the previous government that wanted to give tax benefits to the richest Canadians. That's why they voted against the Canada Child benefit and lowering taxes on the middle class. Unfortunately, that's more what we're going to see.
Remind honourable colleagues that one person at a time has the floor, and now the Honourable Opposition House Leader has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I was asking the Prime Minister about the standing order changes. Mr. Speaker, if he wants to be accountable, he needs to answer some of these questions directly. We now find out that the Liberals want to shut down this House and only have it open 4 days a week. Canadians have to work 5 days a week. The Liberals should as well. So again, does the Prime Minister commit that if any changes will be made to the standing orders, that he will have agreement from all parties in this House? Yes or no?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected a government with a big idea of how we were going to help Canadians, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're always looking for ways to make the workings of this House more efficient, better able to serve Canadians both in the ridings and in Ottawa, and we're happy to open a discussion about whether we should make Fridays a full day of work instead of the half day that the Conservatives seem to want. We're happy to do more work for Canadians. Let's just figure out the best way to do it.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are scheming to dramatically change the rules of this House to serve their own partisan interests. They want to shut the place down on Fridays and take a day off at the same time as tens of thousands of Canadian workers have been laid off. And the Prime Minister only wants to have to show up here once a week for question period. These changes will diminish Parliament and greatly reduce government accountability. Will the Liberals respect parliamentary precedent and only proceed with those changes that all parties will agree to, or will they ram these changes through to rig the system in their favour?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this government
Parliament recognizes the important work that members of Parliament do in this House and in their constituencies. As a member of Parliament for the riding of Waterloo, I can assure all members that when I return to the riding, I continue working hard for my constituents. I cannot speak for the member opposite, but I'm sure that most members will be doing the same thing, and I would encourage that to be the case. We have released a conversation to ask the committee to actually broaden the scope of their study to consider modernizing this place as we committed to Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-Les-Érables. Mr. Speaker, it's shameful to cast doubt on the work of my colleagues, that my colleague does here. The government House Leader... Mr. Speaker, the government House Leader recently unveiled a document with proposals to modernize how the House conducts its business, and soon after, a similar motion was tabled at the Standing Committee for Procedure and House Affairs. Can the committee chair, the member for Yukon, please tell us when that study will take place? Can he assure us that the committee meetings will not happen in camera? And will he respect the idea of transparency and sunny ways from the Prime Minister?
Honourable Member for Yukon.
Mr. Speaker, as the member knows, the committee is the master of its own destiny. It has a subcommittee that decides the procedure and the timing. The member knows what's in the motion, the timing for improving the operation of this House, and it'll be up to the committee to decide how they arrange the meetings to do that.
The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, it's a long-standing practice that no major changes to the standing orders can be adopted without the consent of all parties. To pick one example among many, the Chrétien government established a special committee on House of Commons procedures. That committee produced 6 unanimous reports over its 2-year lifetime. Therefore, can the chair of the Procedure and House Affairs Committee tell the House, will his committee accept the principle of unanimity with respect to changes to the standing orders?
And the member for Yukon.
Mr. Speaker, the committee, as I said before, is in charge of its own procedures, in charge of its own precedents, in charge of its own way of dealing with different motions, and the House, the committee will decide that and proceed on that in that manner.
The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Right, Mr. Speaker, less than 2 hours after the proposals and standing orders were made public, a Liberal MP put forward a motion to, 1, force the Procedure and House Affairs Committee to treat the proposals as a single omnibus measure, and 2, impose draconian deadlines in reporting back to the House. In other words, to impose closure. It appears the Liberals are trying to ram through this motion at a secret in-camera meeting planned for 11 a.m. tomorrow. My question is for the chair of the committee. Number 1, will the closure motion be scheduled for discussion at tomorrow's meeting? And number 2, will that meeting be held in camera or in public?
The member for Yukon.
Mr. Speaker,
Order. Order. Members want to hear the answer. They ought to listen. Or perhaps we'll go on to the next question. Well, let's hear the answer then. Now, member for Yukon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member is very experienced in committee operations, and he knows the committee itself makes those decisions.
As is often the case, we didn't actually get an answer to the question from the Leader of the Opposition. This Prime Minister is going further than Stephen Harper would have ever dared to do, and telling Canadians he only wants to show up in question period once a week. So I'm going to ask the question again. What would the Prime Minister's reaction have been if Stephen Harper had dared to propose what he's proposing?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, the way we are going about this is by opening a discussion, an open conversation with the members opposite about how to...
Order. The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton, and others, I know, will want to hear both the questions and the answers, and will, I'm sure, manage to calm themselves. Both members in all parties can listen to what they hear, even when they don't like it. and not react. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I wonder about the school children in the gallery who are wondering at how effective this Parliament actually is right now. We are proposing ways to discuss how to improve the quality of debate and allow the government to be held to account in a thoughtful, responsible way, and this kind of shouting is what they get. That's not worthy of this Parliament. It's not worthy of the people they serve, Mr. Speaker.
That's right. Honorable député d'Outremont.
With answers like that, we really could replace him with a cardboard cutout. And his peanut gallery would never notice the difference.
I can't tell you how awesome it is to see those videos being shared. And you make these guys uncomfortable. Did you see that Liberal scurry down the hall? Did you see how fast he ran away when he knew I was doing a Facebook live feed on this? Because they know what they're doing is wrong, and they know you're going to hold them to account. These Liberals, they live for being liked. They live for the selfies. They live for, they manage to being liked. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to do what's right for you. So I just want to thank you for your partnership today. All of my colleagues, 2 of my colleagues right now are trying to filibuster in this dank little room in the basement of the House of Commons. When they see your comments and your likes and your shares on these videos, it makes a huge difference. It's like a partnership. Like we're trying to do something that matters here. So if you want to follow, this committee is being broadcast live on CPAC. I haven't had a chance to go back to my office to share it on my Facebook page, but we are going to be here all night. You mark my words. We are going to hold these Liberals to account. You know what? We've got stronger will than they do. I know I have stronger will than a Liberal, and I know you have stronger will than these people do too. So we're going to stand up for your right. I want to work on Fridays. You pay me to work on Fridays. I'm great with working on a Friday. I'm going to stand up against that. I am more than happy to use my voice in committee. Some of you watched my Facebook video where I held the Minister of Immigration to account. Some of you watched my video with my colleague Shannon Stubbs where we held the Immigration Minister to account for his decision to close the Vegreville processing plant. Under the Liberals' plan, we wouldn't be allowed to do that anymore. Can you imagine that? That they're trying to change democracy so Shannon Stubbs and I can't do what we did? You know what, it's kind of flattering to think that they're so scared of us that they need to change the parliamentary rules to do this. It's crazy. This is crazy. This is actually crazy. Oh, while we're sitting here, another Liberal member left the room. I think that's fantastic. Okay, I'm going to go to the washroom. I'm going to wash my face. I might make my hair less messy, but I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you right now, my entire Conservative caucus, the entire NDP caucus, we're going to sit in there all night. We're going to sit in there for, I don't care. If it's a year, we're going to sit there around the clock and hold these guys to account. What you need to do is share this video. You need to go on the phone. You need to phone Liberals MP or Liberal MPs and say this is wrong. This is crazy. Don't do this. Stop this. Stop trying to change the rules to make it convenient for yourself to pass crappy legislation. And I'm going to go and try and make a coherent speech right now. So anyway, as the Liberal staffers scurry down the hallway, we know that you're holding things tight for us. And I'm going to go back into this basement room right here and stand up for you. This is a glamorous life of a member of Parliament. Anyway, have a great night, you guys. And thank you for all your comments. Have a good night.